There's just 1 minute to showtime.
The engines are on.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
When they wrote up the systems and the rule set that we use, did working people get to write a line? What class of men on pen and paper jotted down their clues? With capital the heart of their design. When 90 million want a thing, but some shareholders say no, which class of people get to have their way? The people read the fine print, say that this thing has got to go, and we'll start writing a new contract here today. Don't you know that hundreds will work and one man keeps the money? They don't think they gotta tell us why. When they say the new social contract, all the bosses will be gobsmacked and everyone will want a sign. Oh, yeah, everyone will want a sign.
All right, 100 steps, and here we are. And we are back with our own Mr. Mayor Jared. Hooray, we're glad to have you back, pals.
What's going on, everybody? I've spent the last... I was in Brazil for a week and a half, or nearly 2 weeks, and then before that I was in Pittsburgh, and I don't think... I'm not fully sick, but like my sinus is definitely angry from being on the plane, so if I'm like clearing my throat a lot today, or sniffling, that is why. I need to just
who does I mean, like, living in the world that we live in, like, everybody all the time, right? Like, first of all, things are going to be like 1,000,000% worse because of allergens, and then obviously, like, everyone has COVID just all the time, so that's just the reality. I don't think anybody is going to begrudge you some sniffles. So, and definitely like the changes and weather and all that kind of stuff too, and the altitude. Like, I'm like one of those people that gets like altitude sickness, like, really bad. Like, so
I like to think I'm getting used to it, kind of. I mean, freaking hopefully it's because I don't plan on stopping traveling. But I didn't want to talk like I have a goofy T-shirt on. It looks like, oh,
I love
Jared
it.
just has the like it's a heart, but
cute.
communism. Well, this is slightly deeper because the place I was going, the like event I played for, they're like, oh, you do communism, right? And we have a guy who they come up. It's not really an inside joke. It's just a. I am just an outside of America joke, I guess. If you lived in Brazil or Mexico, you might know this guy. This is El Chapulín Colorado. Colorado being being red in this case because he's red. He is from the 70s. He had a sitcom, and you see he has the red heart with CH, and I have the red heart, the yellow heart rather, with the hammer and sickle in it. They presented the theme this year at the event I was at was superheroes. Chapulín Colorado. He is a superhero technically, but he is closer to like a Three Stooges type character, where you'll see he looks. This is like a schlubby guy and a thing. Yes, that is kind of the point.
I love the deedly bobs. Those are super cute.
He has antenna.
Like, really...
You can see one of them, but he has like coat tails behind him because I think he's supposed to be kind of like a bug. So I'm like, is this like Mexican the Tick, but way way earlier? Because this is from the 70s, and he gained a lot of popularity in Brazil. So if you look up Chapulín Colorado clips, they'll usually either be dubbed or subbed in Portuguese. Also, I am just kind of learning about him now. I watched a few sketches, and it's helping me work on my Spanish because since it is a freaking slapstick comedy, it's not the most complicated scripts that you got or jokes you need to be paying attention to, which I think also is probably why he gained popularity and play. Because if you're a kid watching a guy like step on a rake and smack himself in the head, you don't really need to speak Spanish if you're a Brazilian Portuguese speaker to vibe with it.
You know, that actually that was always sort of the appeal to audiences about silent film, you know, especially in comedy, and that it was the exact same scenario. You really don't need I mean, like they would they might dub like the different title cards, and for different, but you didn't really need, to understand, like, oh, you fall off the car, or the train almost hits you, or the house blows up. You understand what you're looking at for the most part. No, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And I really like that too, because that like that it is like kind of, it transcends language. But I love that they I'm a kind of nostalgia person, like, so I love to see when other people are doing the same thing. So that's really neat. I love that.
I thought, I'm like, oh, Chapulin, this is like a reference to Charlie Chaplin, and I'm sure it like half is, but it also can translate to a specific kind of grasshopper in Mexico, which is good, bug, ho 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 ho. But I'm sure, like, Mexicans have puns.
Yeah.
They understand
Right? Yeah.
wordplay. I'm
Right.
sure that's not entirely unintentional there either.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably the case. It probably is in reference to
A
both of
goof on,
them.
like, oh, Chapel, but yeah.
Yeah,
He's
no,
a
that's really
very.
cool.
It
So
goes to
yeah, if
his
we have an
competencies
international
also.
audience, maybe they will get the reference
Yeah.
without you having to explain. But like, I just think it's a cute shirt. But I'm glad to hear
It
there's
is
a story behind it.
I also
So
think it's cute. I'm gonna like wear it probably. I have to freaking think about it though, because I don't want to make anybody have to like. I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable. I was there. They were joking. Oh, you should wear this through U.S. security when you return to the States, and I did, but but it was after a bit of thinking. And
yeah,
oh yeah, nothing happened coming back. I'm sure I talked before. Like, oh, you're gonna come back to the U.S. You're gonna get like grabbed and detained. I think I kind of missed the whole media wave of that. Not that they were fake detentions. Not that they didn't like mess with people. But a lot of that, it's for show. It's like so Trump can go, hey, look at me. I'm stopping everybody, even white people. I'm stopping. Get on the news. Whoa, Trump is doing so much with immigration. When in reality, we know that he is kind of doing less about immigration than Biden and his predecessors did in the past. He just is better at the showman part of
right.
look at these
We're
shocking and
making those
horrible
faces.
detentions and deportations. We're grabbing pilots out of the cockpit because he missed a green card or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's so it gets more news attention, while in whole numbers, I'm over here going, well, why don't you go after the people who are employing slave labor? If you really want to change anything, you know where they are. They make
Yeah.
billions of dollars. They're traded on the stock market. These are huge companies. Go have fun, man. No.
No, couldn't do that. No, not possible. Not like, no. Why would we go for the source who people pay for the policy and government?
It's like
So,
the freaking. We're going to talk about the Epstein list, of course. It's like, yeah, you
yeah.
got Epstein. Why don't you go after the clients?
Right, exactly. And yeah, we will get into that, because that is something that my solo shows while Jared was away, I've been covering, and we just want to make sure that, again, we're not journalists, we're not news people, we're just people with assholes with opinions, and so we want to talk about these things, because this now has got the toothpaste is not going back in the tube with this. Like, there is no way he can get out of this. And I don't mean like necessarily prosecution. I'm just saying, like, he can't make this go away.
He can't just look over here.
Yeah, the
I'm gonna
misdirection
arrest
is
Obama
over.
or some shit.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he's tried every trick in the book. He comes from and I've talked about this again in some past shows about Roy Cohn, who was himself a gigantic fraud, but was the right hand man of McCarthy. So he taught Trump every trick in the book, everything he knew. They were best bros for a long time. So that is something that, but he comes from, he would have been in a completely different era, and everything that he taught to Trump does not apply to the modern digital era, where the receipts are right here all the time. So yeah, and we'll unpack that a little bit. We got a couple, like, we're not necessarily headline news here. Usually you've heard what we're talking about. It's just, again, we have our opinions about things, and I do foresee this as the harbinger of him resigning, because once again, we're only 6 months into this second go round here. It feels like it's been 10 years. The man is 79 years old. He is losing his base. He is,
Losing his mind.
He's losing his mind. Did you see? You were out of the country, so you may not have seen it. But
No.
did you see the thing with Jerome Powell?
I saw nothing. It's been amazing.
Oh, Christ,
It's been a great
so
2
great.
weeks.
Oh yeah, you guys totally detox, but it was so great. Like, he and Jerome Powell are standing on this building site, right? And they're both wearing these stupid hard hats, like it means anything. And they're there for the cameras. And I can't exactly remember the context of the story. This happened about a week ago. Can't remember the context, but they're standing side by side like they do, giving this dumbass press conference. And Trump starts to lie about something. And Jerome Powell starts going like this. like to the fucking cameras. He's going, no.
Powell
And he's
gets
like,
to mess with
what
the
is happening right now? Because nobody ever really descends to him in front of him. And he's like, that's not true. That didn't happen. And then Trump's like, yeah, no, it did happen. I have a letter and it happened. And he hands him this letter and he's like, it happened right here. I've got it. I'm sure that I've got it. This is what they told me. And he's like, this came from the Fed. He hands him the letter and he's like, no, this didn't. No, it didn't. No, this isn't true. None of this is true. This is based on old information. And he sits there and just blows him up right in front of the media at this whole scenario. It was absolutely hilarious. And that was like the first act of public dissent to his face that we've really seen. So this is, people do not want to be associated with him. Did we lose you? You're frozen. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? You can see you, but I can't. You're frozen. Well, take this time to shout out the chat. Hey to Are You Time Traveler says hello to us. I don't want to get into anything big without him being able to. It's so funny. He's just like, and maybe if I freeze, I'll look like we're both frozen. That'd be hilarious. Anyway, we're going to talk about that a little bit more in detail because this really is. We're at a point when there's no going back from this. He cannot rectify this situation. None of his tricks are going to work. He is. I think we lost him, but he'll be back. It wouldn't be an episode of Social Contract if we didn't have the tech problems that you've come to love and enjoy as much as we do. It's always something here, though. American internet. What are you gonna do? But we're glad to have you all here as per usual. We love it. Even if you can't watch live, we love to have you here because, like we've said before, we don't care if it's one person or a million people. We just love to try to talk about how we could make things better and try to strive for that better world and to coalition build. That's really our intention with most things. Is we really just want to let people know things can be better. When you get into this negativity loop of things, and we all live, taking in way more information than human brains are supposed to be taking in. It's gloom and doom all the time, and everyone's miserable all the time. We don't have what we need. We don't even have our basic necessities. There was a recent poll, I think through CBS, that said 60% of people feel like they are living, sub-minimum quality of life. I would say that is probably a small sample that they base that on, because I would say probably a lot closer to 70 at least. Because you got to think about wealthy and rich, not like those are two different things, but like wealthy people aren't having the same problems, but they're to some degree they're feeling an impact of things. But that most people are not wealthy or rich, so. Which is another thing. We are on track for, even though there's no homes and there's no food and everything is in garbage condition in this country. Guess who's? We're about to have our first trillionaire. So Elon Musk, in a matter of months, could reach trillionaire status, which is disgusting. And should not be. It should not be an acceptable thing. He should be taxed into oblivion. By any country that he lives in. And that was another one of Trump's distraction tactics recently, was that he said something to the degree of, and it may have just been bullshit. I don't know. When it comes to Trump, it's hard to tell the difference between what's real and what's fake. So as part of the design, the WWE tactics. But I did hear something that I didn't get to follow up on, which was that he asked Elon to move voluntarily out of the country. May or may not be true, but he's throwing everything at the wall. He's trying everything, and that's basically where we are right now. His distraction tactics are not working the way he's been taught to distract, to deflect, and we're only 6 months into this presidency, so everything is essentially a big fucking mess. And he really, at this stage in his life, now with his devastating medical diagnosis of vein issues, and it's like a lot of people were like, yeah, and then they found out it was nothing. They're like, boo, oh, he's just got old man. So that's where we are. Let me check my messages real quick, make sure that he hasn't spoken anything. No, okay. Yeah, so I was trying to vamp here a little bit because I didn't want to get into anything heavy. Well, I didn't want to miss out because he's been away. In any case, something else that you may have heard about, which is all tied into everything here, is that have you noticed the wave of celebrities and in particular in the UK and America and Canada, the Democrat or whatever their version they're in different countries suddenly got from their handlers the all clear to mention the starvation campaign in Gaza. And how terrible, like it hasn't been going on for 2 fucking years already. Wow, why are they all suddenly talking about it now? That's kind of a big question a lot of people have, because we know that like there's no way they didn't know, these people. There's no way that this wasn't made apparent to them. They've had people yelling it at them in the streets. They've had people tweeting it at them for 2 years. And now we are in a place where it is like apparently this is actually information I'm not super clear on, because I just heard about this, but I feel like I'm like, you heard from this guy who 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 heard from this guy's cousin. But no, it's just that apparently there are stages to famine, and if you get past a certain stage, which is where they are now, that there is really nothing you can do, because a person can be, if you're talking about like an individual case, like a person can be to the point where there can be no medical intervention, that they essentially go into organ failure. You can't give them anything, you can't do anything. Now there are like kind of medicinal and kind of caloric medicinal midway juncture things that people can eat if they're in a famine situation. This stuff was a lot of the time developed to deal with different like famines, not necessarily in a political situation, but like if like a ecological situation, or like ecological situation. So or economical rather. I said the same thing in a different way. Ecological or economic situation, so that they can try to keep the population of people alive. But I guess we are seeing what that we are past the point of no return for a lot of these people, because they have experienced the starvation campaign for so long that for a lot of these people it's still going to work according to the Israeli plan, the extermination campaign. And I think that I don't necessarily think that they just got the all clear to say these things because now it's time and we can't ignore it anymore, and we're looking at an election coming up. Like obviously that would be a factor to all of this, but at the same time I feel like it to cast if AIPAC doesn't want to cast any aspersion on Israel or Netanyahu. And that's been the case the entire time. And these people that they have paid in Congress to, contradict what is right in front of our own eyes all this time and act like he's great and take pictures with him and this, that, and the other. Now there is no ignoring it. But I kind of feel like we might be doing a kind of bait and switch scenario here when it comes to the reason why this is happening right now, because it's the exact same thing that's going on in Ukraine, which I know that Jared wanted to talk about a little bit more. I haven't got a message from him. So it could be that his whole internet has gone down. That's happened before. It happens to me too. It's just internet. The way that it is. So just check in with the chat. Time Traveler says they've heard that too about the famine, that now it's past the point of no return. It's very terrible. I don't want to use platitudes and say it's so sad, because it is, but we've been living with this for this long. So it's beyond sad, it's beyond tragic, it's infuriating, and it's disgusting. And I think we all want Nuremberg trials for this. I think we want to see people come to justice for this. We are hearing gamer Jam. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing. Says, can I just say I'm angry? I got a lot on my mind. I understand. I get it. That's where we're coming from. That's where we're all coming from. That's why we're here today. That's why we're meeting at the clubhouse, so we could talk about these things, kind of get these things off of our chest because we know what's wrong. And what is wrong with the world and Israel and the United States very toxic relationship is really playing into that. And once again, I want to point out that Israel is not some just entity out there doing this. Like we think about, World War I, World War II, where Germany just started to try to take over. Just like, okay, we're going to put everything into industry. We're going to do all this kind of shit. We're going to make it happen. And then we're going to take over the world. They were sort of an independent entity. So you get sort of the same vibe of thinking, well, Israel must be doing the same thing. Israel would not exist if it were not for the United States. Plain and simple. They've only been there since 1948. These people trace their lineage. It's going to lead them back to New Jersey. Okay. Like, these people are not real. The colony is not real. That's what, we're really talking about here. We are in a situation where, yes, they are acting out of control, but they're acting with like zero impunity. Like, they're not getting in trouble for anything that they're going to do on the world stage. They have just paid, and the money works cyclically. People can easily launder money through, and countries can launder money through Israel. And it's always been like to be the American stronghold in the Middle East to basically keep control of these other countries like Iran, that they don't want to decide that, that they should have any agency in that kind of a thing. So it is an extension of American colonialism, plain and simple. So, okay, I don't know what's going on with our mayor here. So, we'll just get there. Gamer James says, can I just say how much I hate ableism in the job market for disabled folks? They discard you so quickly despite your work and willingness to work. Yes, that is, there's been a lot of statistics coming out. This is something I can easily talk about because I have a disability and I cannot, I work remotely. I've been doing it for 20 years. I can't find any source of income. I've been searching for a very, very long time. So this is a personal issue for me as well. I have like major skills in more than one field, and they have been absolutely eaten up by AI. People are not afraid to have medical textbooks written by AI now. That should scare the shit out of you. Like, they're every single thing that has to do with any kind of writing, editing, design, graphic design, art. It's all being done now for these bosses who are chasing infinite profit. And for the time that I have been looking, which is a significant period of time. And you have to look every day. You have to work every day to try to get ahead of it when you're applying. There's a lot of ghost applications out there that are just fake. And then now we have employers complaining about getting flooded with AI applications. So, well, cry me a river. I don't really care. Figure it out. It's your stupid industries that are doing this to people because you're all chasing infinite growth. So that, and there is now some information out about, I don't have the statistics in front of me. I just read them. And I wasn't planning on talking about it, but they talk about it all the time. But now it's showing that now some statistics are showing that a significant portion of the boomer generation and Gen X generation that have been laid off due to these kinds of things, or for any reason really, have been unable to find any kind of reemployment whatsoever. And it also, there is some information showing out that college degrees versus non-college degrees have the same unemployment rate. So we are, again, as I'm constantly warning about, in a mass exodus situation when it comes to job market. And, we're, when we see in this stupid bill that just passed, the Trump's bill, now saying that municipalities or at the state level or the national level cannot regulate AI for 10 years. We'll be a wasteland by that point. Like, it's already going. We know it's already going. It's already gone. The jobs are gone. And I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know. I don't think any of us know what we're going to do. So especially if that really happens and there's no try to take these backsies on that. But again, that kind of plays into if we have to work in the speculation zone pretty much all the time because we don't necessarily know what's going to happen about anything. We kind of have to guess. If we see this Ghislaine Maxwell pardon go forward, that will most certainly propel this situation to where it will be clear that he is obviously culpable, or can't get out of it in one way or the other. So he might try to hang on to the presidency to try to claim presidential immunity, which you will then find out would not apply because it would have been crimes prior to doing things as president. And then it also depends on what she says, because we have a lot of his allies now distancing themselves from him. They don't want to be caught up in this. If they weren't rich and powerful enough to have been invited into one of the situations where they could have benefited from Epstein's doings, then they don't want to necessarily be branded as a co-conspirator or a pedophile or something like this. So you're seeing some loyalists really start to distance themselves away from him in that way. That he's been insulting towards his base, who are, because I think across the board, regardless of political affiliation, people hate pedophiles more than anything else, right? So you walk up to somebody on the street, you're like, what should we do with the pedophiles? They'll be like, oh yeah, you should fucking kill them for sure. Like, people are just, that's like the lowest opinion you have of anybody. Like mass murderers, shooters and stabbers get to do it all day long. Nobody even cares anymore. But then like you cross that line big time when you get into the whole like pedophilia thing. So like, people are not forgetting this. It's not going away. So it's possible that if he were to resign, that bill could maybe get a revote of some kind, and it reworked, or not actually implemented in the way that they said they were going to. So there could be some tie-ins there. So I don't want to get anybody's hopes up, but that maybe could nullify something like the no regulating of AI or the cuts to Medicare, Medicaid type of situation. That possibly could have something to do with it. But again, speculating. I just feel like everything like that he's built here would basically dissolve. So I don't feel like Congress or anybody would necessarily be beholden to enforcing that. It might still be on the books, but then they might not really do anything about it. But again, it also depends on what is said in this, what Ghislaine is willing to say here, right? Because again, with the people distancing himself, and we're speculating again, but the attorney generals and the people that have spoken to her allegedly and given it, and how she's been granted this kind of like limited immunity scenario, which is, and asks for a pardon, right? She's asked for a pardon, presumably because she's going to speak. So there's about a couple of ways that can go. One, the way I think everybody expects, where they come up with a list of dead people and some Democrats, and Trump's name is nowhere on it, right? Even though we have all the witnesses that were there. Virginia DeFray said that Maxwell was like worse than Epstein because she was like a literal devil. She was like doing the work, and she also was sexually molesting these girls as well. Like they were having like, they were liaising together. So they were putting them in that. She was like literally involved, right? So we have that as well. So we know her history and everything like this. And if she's seeking a pardon, that can go one of two ways. Either the AG Pam Bondi and we have the people working in that capacity, Department of Justice, and anybody who's involved, right? Either they run interference for Trump and they tie themselves, they hitch themselves to his wagon, as it were. And then we end up in this whole situation where they, if we go down, we all go down together. And if they're willing to do that, and a lot of these people are significantly younger than him, so are going to, and they're careerists. So you have to ask yourself, are they willing to sacrifice their careers and become unhireable even in the private sector because they did interference for a known pedophile? Because again, even his own base doesn't at this point is either claiming they really didn't believe it, or they're so shocked they thought he was honest, blah blah blah, whatever dumb crap they want to say. But the base is pushing back, against this. And he's calling them stupid. So anytime you start to call your own, you start to insult your own base, that's not a good sign, right? And again, 6 months in here, I don't foresee a 79-year-old man up against the wall this badly, persisting in another 3.5 years of this, right? And he just can't beat this. This is not going away. All the other crap he did before went away, but this is not going away. So they can run interference for him. They could work with Ghislaine. They could make up this whole scenario of like name Bill Clinton and all my political enemies, and then a whole bunch of dead people nobody could do anything about. And then we're all going to dispute and talk and go on and on and on about this crap. or they can be thinking of themselves, which we know that Republicans especially are cutthroat and willing to do this, but just politicians in general are willing to do this because you really sacrifice any kind of moral fortitude that you know to do these jobs. And it being a careerist and that kind of a thing, and they then the alternative is they can work with her, Ghislaine, and get his name, get the dirt on him, and then just surprise everybody, and he wouldn't know about it either, and be like, we got it, he did it, he is going out because he's culpable, we've got the information, she's got it, and I don't know necessarily if she would still be eligible. She wouldn't be eligible for a. I don't think she'd be getting that presidential pardon, but I think that like there might be some sort of something that could happen there if that happened for her. But and in that case, then we would be talking about potential prosecution towards him. He would probably try to say, "I'm a president, you can't," and they'd say, "You fucking can because it happened before and everybody knows it." And then he would just be politically pressured by people, by the world, by nobody would do work with him at this point. Like anybody who did would be sullying their own reputations, just in even diplomatic matters. If a country goes to have a meeting at the White House with their leader or their spokesperson, they go home, then they're going to be immediately asked, why didn't you bring this up? Why didn't you say something? Why? So it's going to look bad for anybody who tries to work with him at this point. At this point, there's no real question of his ties to Epstein. There has been tons and tons of evidence, of photos, of letters, of wire transfers. It's all there. It's there. This would work on someone less of a big deal. This would already be pretty much enough to convict, right? So that's where we are. So we're going to either see, because if they are able to, let's say the AG and then like the Republicans behind the scenes and some of the more powerful people, if they were able to, let's say, cut him out and then put Vance forward just as sort of the puppet president while they did all the dirty work behind the scenes, right? That would be ideal for them. And we may see things get a lot worse. We may see them try to paint themselves as great big heroes, whatever. But that, I think, is kind of a looming situation that we are looking at. In the way that, the connections with Netanyahu and Israel and what's happening in Gaza, like his reputation is always been bad, but when it starts to go bad with the base, and you lose your base, that's where it really becomes the something you can't return from, essentially. I'm not hearing from Jared. I'm guessing maybe his whole internet went down, so we're just gonna go on and talk about what we planned, and then he can just jump back in here if he can manage. This happened to me before too. Everything just kind of goes down, so I understand. And I'm sure that's not what he was hoping would happen after having been gone for a while. But it's just us out here in the clubhouse. We'll get through. We'll get through. But that's, I think, what we're looking at right now. And we want to keep bringing it up, and we want to keep talking about it, not because we enjoy talking about it and because it's fun and interesting and whatever, but because if you look comparatively to, let's take history into account, okay? So let's talk about Nixon for a minute, who we know resigned due to the Watergate scandal, and a lot of the dumb shitty shit he did, because that idiot recorded like every conversation he ever had with anybody, and he's like, "Did you do the crimes?" And they're like, "We did the crimes." So like this idiot was like, they had him coming and going, right? He was a stupid ass, a complete stupid ass. So, and that's why he resigned ultimately. We don't need to get into the whole shtick of it. That's just basically what ultimately happened. But that was for much less of a crime than being a participant, and probably a pretty consistent participant in a sex trafficking pedophilia ring. So that's what we're really looking at. Like, this blows that out of the water, because you kind of have to look, what's the historical precedent, right? So, okay, maybe we're hearing something here. Like, hang on. Yeah, it looks like I got a message incoming. Um, I have a feeling his internet went down. But the fact of it is that well, this is just an inescapable thing. Like it's been rumbling under the surface all this time because nobody really had anything. But then suddenly, you've got all these outlets coming up with stuff. You've got all the, these new letters and these new, photographs and stuff. And he's like, I barely even knew the guy. I never had the privilege of going to the island. Like, you fucking idiot. Like, can't you get anything right? Like, can you just anything at all? So, and also, again, there's no real reason to get ableist about it or ageist about it, but I think we are at the point now where we're realizing the way that the Democrats have handled things, where they have just kept these yes voters, of politicians, these yes doers, into the office until they're literally dying in their chair, and that's happened explicitly, and that's another big reason that people have lost faith in the Democrats, other than also this kind of planned opulescence that they've been doing, and so like they're on the public stage showing that they're completely obsolete, they're completely useless. I don't know what that kind of strategy is even about. So and then we know when they do things in public that they think that they need to move to the right and become more austere, and things are getting worse. And then we see countries like the UK and Australia and Canada fall right in line, with the same type of attitude, like, oh, we've got to be dickheads. That's what people want right now, dickheads. So that's where we're at. We're really and when we talk about the uniparty, that's what we're talking about. They're really fighting and doing one big campaign, and we have a stolen government. It's not remotely democratic. So that's the mess that we find ourselves in, and that's why we're constantly saying electoral politics isn't it. You can't vote your way out of this. You can't fix this. So we might also be reaching an entirely new stage of it's kleptocracy, but it's also like it's just like this complete lack of democracy, because if we do what America has done all over the world forever, and get rid of Trump and install, let's say, Vance as he would be the progression of things, unless they skip right over him, go to the Speaker of the House, who thinks God talks to him. So that would be great. But the idea is that if they had him out of the way, then that would be a puppet president way more than Trump, who would, potentially argue and fight back, and I want to do things my way and cause a problem. Essentially, basically doing your own coup on the country. Then that would be like the ultimate power grab, right? Like that would be like the way that to basically implement and do whatever you wanted to do. So somewhere in between how bad things are going in the cover that the American government and then the Western governments have given Israel to just carry out a genocide, and then we have this Epstein thing that's not going away. It really puts him rock and hard place situation. Like, so I think as we see this play out, I think that there's going to be, once he finds out he really can't claim any kind of presidential immunity, might agree, like, if you don't prosecute me, I will step down. So, and that was sort of basically what happened with Nixon. Like, if you let me out of trouble, I'll get out of here. Okay. So, like, that's basically what we're looking at. I think that, if history is any indication, and his age is taken into a factor, and what that the American government and the corporations that run it could ultimately benefit from by having him out of the way, because he's such a firebrand, like he attracts so much attention. He's always wanting to be on television. Like, if they could get his ass out of the way, they could do so much dirty work worse than having him take all the heat for everything. Like, that's really where we are. So in the same part of the conversation there, you have probably already heard that the Handala, which was the next flotilla that after Greta's, that tried to make to take supplies to Gaza, was intercepted and attacked by the IDF. And this is happening again in real time. And this time it was, I think, primarily Americans, a crew of 11. One of those crew members, the most notably being Christian Smalls of Amazon labor fame. He really got on the scene by organizing the first Amazon labor union. There was a documentary about it a little bit ago. about how all that works and about trying to spread that, working against Amazon and trying to make other unions, and how I think something they really pointed out that was really interesting is how hard it is to try to make an organization like that work when everybody wants to be the boss. So it kind of shows exactly where the shortfalls come into the situation. In any case, kind of suddenly a couple of weeks ago, he announced he was going to be on this next voyage, right? So, and we talked about it on the show. It was, as soon as I heard about it, I mentioned it. And so unsurprisingly, they were intercepted and attacked. But he is, to the surprise of no one, being that he is an American and a black male and the only person of color in that crew, not little adorable Greta, who the world is watching and really cares about, can't harm a hair on her head, right? Everybody's looking. So IDF is beating the fuck out of him. No real surprise there. They did say when they reached, when they were intercepted and when they got there, they would immediately start a hunger strike in solidarity with Palestinians, which, again, is supposed to put pressure on your government to come and do something about this. It was completely silent. I'm still not seeing anything from politicians talking about it. Everybody's magically staying out of it, even though that they're like totally cool with they got the go ahead to say, hey, there's a famine. Somebody better do something. It's too bad nobody's in charge around here. If only we had the power. So he has said, and there's no reason to doubt that because they're white supremacist pieces of shit, that they, that he was brutalized pretty severely by 7 IDF officers, all males this time, and he was choked, he was beaten, he was threatened, he's brutalized basically pretty severely, and this is information that's been passed down the chain through his lawyers. So there's no reason to doubt it anyways, even if you thought like, oh, well, maybe they're just saying that. No, it's true. There's not been any, thankfully, it hasn't been worse, and there's not been any information coming through about any kind of sexual assault, which we know is the IDF's go-to thing to do. They have a very strange preoccupation with sex and rape and things like this as sort of like a cultural touch point. It's very strange. So it'd be in their best interest to let them the fuck go, but especially with this information coming out. But nobody's coming to bat for him in the government, and we knew this wouldn't be this would be the case, that nobody would. So we're waiting around to see what happens, I guess, because it's at their discretion essentially. Last time they tried to make them eat sandwiches and watch propaganda videos, and they got mad when they wouldn't and crybabied online about it. This time, it's a lot more serious, being that he's black and male and American. They just, went to town essentially. I haven't heard about anything about how the other crew people have been treated throughout this process. I can assume it's probably not as sweet and adorable as Greta was, because again, comparatively, she is much bigger notoriety on the world stage, that's again, they don't really care. They know if they'd be in a lot more heat if they'd have messed with her the same way as they can do to him, because they know nobody's coming to his rescue, nobody's coming to his aid. So that's even more of a something that you should be really thinking about him about, that he really genuinely has put his life on the line here, because knowing the circumstances that he went into, I'm sure that he's experienced his fair share of harassment, cops and white people up to this point in his life. I can't imagine a person of color who hasn't. So he really has, in fact, put his life on the line for this situation and for trying to raise awareness for Gaza. Keep your eye on that story. It's unfolding. We don't really know what's going on. We hope that it doesn't get worse. Obviously, it would be in their best interest to let him go. Hasn't happened yet. I did see Jared typing at one point, but I think maybe there's some sort of interference. So yeah, I'm sorry about that, guys. I know you're excited to have him back up, but I appreciate you hanging out with me. So I hope you got all your snacks and your blankets and your secret decoder ring for our meeting here. That's we're making the best of a bad situation, and that's another thing too. And that was sort of what, let me try to get your name right again. Gamer, is it JM? Gamer JM or Jam? I apologize if I'm getting that wrong. They, when you bring up the fact that the job market is so fucked, and you say, I believe you said you were from Manitoba, so you're talking about what's going on in Canada. A lot of people have this idea that Canada is some kind of mecca. That you could just flee America and go to Canada and things are going to get better for you. They're not. They're having an austerity issue of their own. Their housing crisis is worse than ours. The job market is shit. They have national health care, but that means national health care. That's not universal health care. So that is, and it's been gutted right, left, and center. So it's in shambles as well. They really are basically being America Junior at this point. We've been warning and saying for a very long time that the UK, that the Canada has really followed America right off the cliff. Done anything we say, yes sir, may I have another, and it's put them in situations that are also very, very terrible for their people. And it does not have to be that way. This is self-imposed. If you look at some place like Mexico, for instance, and right now under the rule of Claudia, I should say rule like it sounds like a dictatorship, but like under the leadership of Claudia Sheinbaum, they're doing public transit. They're doing all these wonderful things that are on the world stage and for the country of Mexico are really, really excellent. They are ignoring what's happening with, their neighbors, and they are going their own way. And her approval rating, not just in Mexico, but across the board, is really high. People are loving her. She's doing great things for the country, basically telling Trump to eat shit. And I think that's a big thing, but none of these other countries are willing to do that, and that's the big problem. They are essentially governed by people with the same idealism of infinite growth. We all want to be trillionaires, right? How do we do this? Trump, do this. And that's what we've been saying since the beginning, is the original Trump administration. People fell for that shtick because they said, oh, he says he's a billionaire, but he's super rich. He's been famous forever. We all know him. He's famous for being rich. He's Mr. Businessman, art of the deal. He makes money. He's going to make money for us. We're going to get money. So people who are already struggling, already doing shit, saw him as, sort of this light at the end of the tunnel of oh, he's going to get things right. And also, bunch of racist pieces of shit bastard people, really thought that he was going to be the one to clean things up. And it did not work out. And now you're having people online saying, I'm sorry, I voted for him, and blah, blah, blah. It's okay, well, too little, too late. You're a jerk off. And nobody really has to forgive you for any of the stuff that you've contributed to. But again, it was not exactly as if we were at no point supporting the Democrats or Kamala Harris. We have never supported the Democrats, and we will not support President Newsom when it gets to that, right? So who everybody's going to treat like new Jesus, because he's going to hit all the right marks, all the right ways, all the right time, have the right smile and the right coif, and everybody's going to be like, this is the guy, and they're going to treat him like everybody did Obama. He's going to be, except is that he's going to have even more right support, and people are going to forget all that he literally was photo opped tearing down homeless encampments himself. They're going to forget that he vetoed a statewide universal health care scenario. They're going to forget all these austerity things because for some reason they got in their heads that they need to move left. This is exactly why Zohran Mamdani has done so well in New York, and just as a primary for mayor. He's not the mayor. They haven't even had that competition yet. Right? But he has ruffled so many feathers and gotten everybody calling him a communism, and he is not a communist. Let's be clear, he's not even a socialist. And when people are saying democratic socialism, that is a shill. That is a fake thing. A democratic socialist is a Democrat, okay? Through and through. It's just trying to capitalize off of the term of socialism. You might have a little bit more socialistic ideas compared to traditional Democrats, which he seems to do, but he's ultimately going to play the game. He's not a one-man army, and everybody fell right back into this, we got cheated with Bernie thing, so they just gravitated to this guy, right? So, but the thing of it is he can only go so far on that, on trading on that, because eventually he will have to fall into line. And at some point along the way, the Democrats got this idea that austerity was the way, and to pretend to be Republicans was the way, and appealing to the worst people in this country, right? Leaving behind an easy 2/3 of the majority who don't want this stuff, but we're easily able to convince their bases that you do want these things. You do. And that goes back to, that's such a common play throughout American history, especially, that, you know, you constantly convince the poor man that the poor man is the one that is his problem, that the person of color is their problem. You know, like that's where this is. Like, you just constantly convince. Just today on the local news, I heard there's an argument because the homelessness is so huge in this area, and I think everywhere, and an established I wouldn't say established necessarily, but an area that people established to live in tents as homeless people, which obviously they don't want to do. The argument now is it lack of housing or is it lack of service? It's not lack of housing. The housing has been hoarded like crazy. Like, you got to get it from these hedge fund fuckers if you want to do anything about it. And the state could easily pay for that, but they're not, because they want those people who make money to keep contributing that money to their campaigns, to, you know, paying, you know, taxes, whatever, and whereas they see these very low income people, maybe so to the point that they aren't able to pay taxes, or are using like Medicaid, or on Medicare situations, so on and so forth, as seeing them as no value, which is obviously, we know on the national and global scale, is homeless and low income people are seen to have no value. But in this particular case, which I think is a good example for the rest of the nation, it doesn't matter where it is. That's what it is. They're making this stupid argument. And then they have these people that come on and they're like, what we need to do is establish an area for tent cities. And it's like, can you fucking hear your moron self at this point? Can you actually hear anything that you're fucking saying that's coming out of your own human mouth? That is the solution. That's the solution. Cut them out a piece of land and say anybody can set up a tent here who's homeless. Good luck. That's the fucking plan. Like, why is there even an argument about this? And they've been saying we have an initiative to fix it and do it by this, and the. No, you fucking don't. You just figured out a way to make money off of it, or to further, ostracize these people from society. And while if implementing this bill, this big beautiful bill nonsense, and the states having their own versions of that to go on top of it, that because Medicaid is run by states, by the way. So that's why it's different everywhere you go. So that is what we're really talking about. It's like, so you're just allowing like this to compound and compound. And then we've seen this in America before. There were the tent cities, the Hoover towns that were called that. And before, when people were just like, okay, we have these like giant shanty towns and everybody's cool with that. And then that went away. And then now that's back. So that is not a fucking solution anywhere in any way. But, to his great genius, now Trump is, again, in distraction, is putting forward, I don't know if he's actually signed the executive order yet, but he wants to put through, if not signed and done, put through an executive order, which would essentially, against their will, commit these people experiencing homelessness to treatment and which is exactly what that is. That is the historical sense of, we've decided you're mentally ill or you have a drug problem, you're going to treatment, which means confined to asylums against your will, sent to prison against your will, which you cannot get out of. And this is something we've been warning about, is that the United States, most especially, but obviously Canada is doing the exact same thing in the UK, is to establish a culture of poverty where they criminalize that poverty by criminalizing homelessness, then put you into into this system of an asylum system, a prison system. And then you have a free labor workforce. We see this all over the place. We know that the prison system, the for-profit prison system, uses prisoner labor, and they are not paid for it, or this, like pennies on the dollar for their work. And the most major corporations in this country employ the prisons, pay them, they get paid to give them this slave workforce. Like literally, go to your kitchen, go to your bathroom, any product in there, the company that makes it is doing this. You can see lists of them online. It's you can't get away from that kind of a thing. And they do it as if this is a proud thing for the United States. Like, don't hire workers, hire prisoners. Like this is a good thing, as if they are, working off some kind of penance. So you take people that are obviously in the worst state that they could possibly be in. Nobody's trying to live in a fucking tent in August outdoors, okay? So you take these people that are worst state of their lives, and you put them into a prison system, no matter what you want to call it. It doesn't matter what trendy, neat name you get for it. You put them in this system, and then you tell them, oh, you can work off your debt if you do this, or you're here, you may as well this, or you don't have a choice, you're going to go do this. So any number of those things could happen. So this is another reason why it's hard for a lot of people, just like we were talking about in the chat. Why would there be anybody hiring people that they have to pay wages to when they could have something like that? You think that some of these people don't have skills? That some of these people aren't white collar people who spun out, that really did have addiction or mental illness issues, and ended up in that situation, because they could employ them just as easily as they could put somebody on on the line in a factory. So that's what we're looking at here. And the way that this stops is by, first of all, everybody having to come to the realization that this is broken and it's not going back. And going to Bernie rallies and listening to his bullshit, bald-faced lying bullshit, is not it. Now, you're all about Mondani? Cool. That was a fun couple of days. Maybe he'll win. He probably will, but magically maybe lose just by enough of a couple of points to not, right? And austerity will win. But he would not be able to do anything, and he would just be the mayor of a city. So that maybe could set a precedent. Maybe another guy comes up, whatever. But that is not going to fix what's already broken. If people have learned how to exploit a system to this level of a degree, you can't put it back. You can't, undo decades and decades and decades of this. This has to be nullified in a way where people build coalitions, build unions, unionize, not just workplaces, but tenant unions. We're talking about, or just the fact that you live in a certain area and pay taxes. Like there you go. Like now we have a union. There needs to be more organizations that function just like unions. And again, not all unions aren't the same. Some of them are shit, but the concept of, okay, we're uniting for a cause. We are going to take things into our own hands, even if it's on the local level. Because think of what you could do at that point. You could say, our local government, here's a scenario. Our local government wants to put, demolish a historic area, and run a highway we don't need through it, when the other highways are in shit condition, right? And they already work just fine, but they just want to do this, right? So just, whatever, laundering money. So that community of people would be united, and say, okay, we are in this scenario, and if you do this, we are going to go on a tax strike, or a rent strike, or a credit strike, or something to do with saying there's going to be consequence for not listening to the people. Because over and over and over, that's what we're seeing. We're seeing elected officials just say no. There's ballot initiatives where people are deciding. I can't remember. It might have been in Missouri, but just in the last couple of weeks, there was a ballot initiative somewhere that was supposed to go into effect that raised the minimum wage in that state, and the governor was just like, no, I'm not doing it. And that was all that there was to it. Like, okay, like what? Why is that acceptable? That is an absolutely unacceptable behavior. That is 100% person is supposed to represent the will of the people. Okay, they are supposed to keep order, to give order, to do things that are going to make their town more than another town, the next town over, a big success. They're going to generate more taxes, and they're going to have cleaner air, and they're going to have better roads, and their kids are going to be smarter in school, and they're going to have less school shootings. But they don't care about this because there's no money in protecting people and providing people with good lives when you could just get in front of it and take away what they already might possibly gain from. And that's how we got here. And you don't come back from that. 10 years ago, shit was shit. We knew things were garbage, but I don't think any of us really saw just how bad things were going to get as they are now. Right. And I'm talking about things like, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought, but I'm talking about things like, like just as, I can't remember. I was reading. Now in the chat, Time Traveler makes a point of saying places like Rallies, Taco Bell, McDonald's have been doing this for years, meaning prison slavery, and they have. It's also the corporations like production, like, food production and stuff like that. And they even have a show on TV about it, which is also true, to try to glorify and justify the situation. The show Fire Country, they say, is which is true, is about a guy who was a prisoner who was made a firefighter, and you're supposed to think how brave and wonderful this is. They're just warming you up to the idea of making prisoners do shit against their will for nothing. That's the idea, and that's been going on a long time. That's been going on a very long time, is having prisoners fight fires, and they can die just as easily as a firefighter. And it's not. We're seeing climate conditions deteriorate further and further and further. They put these people out there on the front lines. They're not getting paid. They're not, being thought of. They're not, considered to be real, actual people. Yet they're fighting side by side with real firefighters as well, and not necessarily even have the kind of training that they do. They're just like, get out there and go. So, you don't vote your way out of this. That's, there's so many aspects that we could sit here all day long and break down and say, well, this doesn't work because of this, and this doesn't work because then they figured out how to this. And it can go, what I was going to say is, like, this can be as simple as advertising. The way that they advertise to us is sickening and insane. You can't watch anything without them going, oh, do you not like this commercial? Do you hate this commercial? Pay more money and you won't have to see this anymore. That's fucking ransom. Like, they are ransoming programs, which they're not making anyway. Has anybody noticed that we got, when you buy all these fucking stupid streamers, they suddenly magically stopped making content or started making it like, yeah, the next season was 2.5 years from now. Like, okay, we know that you're going to pay for it anyway. So, like, 'cause they make it hard to cancel, and then they like, we'll give you a couple of piecemeal things in the meantime. So everything that can be exploited in any possible way, even in a small way like advertising, is being done. It is being absolutely destroying any kind of quality of life, from something small like advertising that it's just annoying or in our faces all the time, all the way up to the grandest scale of things of, like, let's make everyone prisoners, and through no fault of their own, essentially, and even if it were, force them into free labor. Like, that is essentially it. When you are looking at the history of the fall of empires, they always end in the same way, which is that basically the people with money, like the patrons, those who have money, I wouldn't necessarily say corporations in like ancient Rome, but like, these patrons and things like this, started dictating policy way too much, started having too much influence in government about who's going to get, who's going to be in charge and who's going to do what, until those people get stupider and more inept over time, like the Wall-E future. Like, they just get more and more useless to the point that they get to the end, and like they can barely even read, and they have no idea that the ship flies on autopilot. The guy that the pilot of the movie is like, he doesn't even know what to do. He's just a figurehead. He's just a person. That's so like that is like that's and it's weird that that is such an easy touch point to go to, like it's a movie made by the corporations that says look at what's happening or in the distant future. That's fucking happening now. That is what's happening now. And that's what's historically always happened. That you get these despots that get put in a position who are just stupid, complete puppets, and then everything is just out of complete control. So another thing is that we pointed out on the show before is once the corporations, once the people with the money really scrape a place dry and there's nothing more to do it, and the people are starting to get restless and angry and they're like causing problems and that, then they're like, fuck it, and they just go to somewhere else and exploit that place, and they won't stay. Like that stuff like is not guaranteed to stay here because America is so great. It's just benefiting those people for the moment right now. Yeah, and people are talking in the chat about being driven crazy by ads. Nathan Coyote mentions YouTube Premium still has ads. Yeah, and that's premium. Exactly. So yeah, you're paying for something, stars, someone says, which of course, even if you pay for something without ads, they still manage to work it in there. And that I think is one of our greatest annoyances, because that puts that capitalistic commerce right in our face. And that is why this program, why this situation exists at all, is because we are trying to tell people and trying to get the message across in ways that are not antagonistic but make sense to people who are realizing in their own ways that capitalism is untenable, and it only works if you have people with capital quashing other people and other dissenting voices in other countries where it's succeeding, and then making it look like a failure, and making people who say they're communists or socialists look like they're crazy. That's the only way this works. Why do you think Mom Donnie is so popular right now? Because people have cast this version of events onto him that he's aren't even real. Like, people have wrapped their hopes up in dreams up. Like, what in Omaha, what is he going to do for you as mayor of New York? Okay, you just really want to see a win. You really are chasing that Bernie high. I mean, let's be real with yourselves, okay? This is a little tough love here. I know you want better. I know he looks better. I know if he inspires other, that looks good. But they are still participating in a broken system. At the very, very least, if we had ranked choice voting, that might make a slight bit of difference. But we don't even have that. That would be the bare minimum of making things even any way better, any way different. So yeah, maybe he will inspire some other people in other places, and maybe they will rise up as well. But we are going to see the AOC-ism of all of these people. And, these people were fake. And look how bad things have gotten to where now the worst among us, literally Christian white nationals, Marjorie Taylor Greene, saying, and these horrible Democrats, Thomas Massey and stuff, like saying the right things. And we've talked about it several times. How many times at this point that we've had to quote Tucker Carlson on the show? We don't want to do that. That guy's a bastard. These guys are horrible people who love playing the villain of imaginary politics, the heel in the WWE of politics, but they somehow are coming out with the right things and saying and doing the right things. That is insanity. So that if the system has turned itself upside down, because it scraped itself so dry. Okay, I'm being informed right now that breaking news, Maxwell is offering to testify. I'm not sure we didn't know that wasn't going to happen. Maybe the words have come out. I think we all knew that was obviously there's going to be, a precedent. There's going to be, setting a stage here with that. But again, to bring it all back around town here to the beginning of the hour, and we'll wrap it up here, people. I know we're going a little bit over. I just was hoping that maybe that Jay was going to be able to move back in with us, but he I think his whole internet probably went down, or his power went out, things like that. So hopefully he's not suffering in the heat right now. So send good vibes to him. But to kind of to reiterate what we were talking about, or what I was we were talking about in the top of the hour. This can go a couple of different ways. She can either testify and then they could throw the whole the whole thing at Trump, all of his involvement, got the receipts, blah, 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 blah. And these people can save themselves, or they're going to run interference for him to try to, because they think that would be the better way, but that would really end all their careers. It would be in their best interest to just slam him, get him out of the way, and not be tied to him with, the rest of their careers. So this is moving pretty rapidly at this point. I know she's probably hoping for a presidential pardon, and if that were the case, she would have to lie, because we know that Trump was involved at this point. It's clear, it's open. Journalists are finally doing their jobs again, and finding this stuff out. And this stuff more will be found out. That's what this whole thing is. And this whole reason that, this all does tie back to Israel. Epstein was working for the Israeli government to collect compromise on people across the globe, the most powerful people, vis-a-vis pay ransom and pay blackmail for what you have done. To kind of further Israel's stronghold, and allow them to do, the whole greater Israel thing, and getting everybody's faces and that kind of stuff. It really all is tied together. It all somehow comes back to Israel. And that's why it's been in our face the last few years, because they have really pushed forward. You heard me a few months ago completely bitching and complaining about there being an Israeli rookie in the Indy 500 in the Indy series. They didn't give a fuck about that shit before, but they were really pushing this guy forward, and everybody was making the hugest deal about this idiot. And it's that's why we're seeing it in every aspect of our life, because they're trying to normalize themselves on the world stage, and right now it is completely backfiring. But the question is this a calculated loss? Are they playing some version of a long game that will say, like, all right, we're going to let everybody look like shit right now, and then because they're planning on bringing in a new prime minister, or because they've got some of their trick up their sleeves, don't count them out yet. That's what I'd like to leave you on. We're running pretty long here. It's too bad that Mr. Mayor wasn't able to join us, but we did like his cute shirt and his fun story. So we will hopefully have him back next week. And because I know you're probably really all looking forward to hearing from him again. So thank you for keeping me company. I appreciate it. And as always, you can keep up with us on our socials. We're on Twitter, Blue Sky. In terms of updates, where you can DM if you want to there. If you want to follow us, we're still working on building up our following. We don't do advertising or solicit or anything like that. We're just here. So if you like what you see and you would like other people to hear it, and, it doesn't hurt to share, give us a share, a shout out, that kind of thing. And you can also find us in our entire archive on YouTube and Rumble, so you can see all of our past episodes as far as that. But you can watch us live on YouTube and Twitch at the present. So we're pretty much everywhere. Just look around for us one way or the other. Find somewhere to reach out, and if you want to find where to follow other places, we can let you know. So thanks again for holding it down with me for our club meeting this week. We will be back with you with whatever fresh hell is going on next week, which I'm sure is just going to be more of the same, because again, we are going to keep talking about this Trump situation, and doing our part to hopefully, continue the wheedling. I don't at this stage know what the best thing to do is. Either get him out of office or keep him in. I'm not sure. We're going to see how it all goes. So take care of each other. Do the best you can. Try to help anybody any way that you can. Try not to go insane. And we will see you next week. Thank you all. Have a good one.